I never thought I'd be that guy, sitting on the edge of my bed just staring at my reflection in the darkness, a swirling mix of disbelief and anger coursing through me. My name is Jake, and my life took a nosedive when I discovered that my wife, Sarah, had been cheating on me. Let me take you through the events that led me here. Sarah and I had been married for 5 years. We were that couple that friends envied, a lovely home, 2 dogs, and a chemistry that everyone thought was unbreakable. But as it often goes, things began to unravel slowly. At first it was minor things. She seemed to be busier than usual and would come home late from work, always with an excuse ready to roll off her tongue. "Just a late meeting," she'd say, her eyes avoiding mine, the subtle shift in her demeanor unmistakable. I tried to brush it off, convincing myself that she was just climbing the corporate ladder at her marketing job. But the nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach wouldn't go away. I started noticing other small changes. Her phone usage skyrocketed, and she had this new habit of keeping it glued to her side as if it contained the secrets of the universe. I noticed how she'd smile at her screen, but when I'd ask her about it, she'd snap back with, "Why are you so paranoid, Jake?" I brushed it off, telling myself I was projecting my insecurities. After all, she was my wife. I trusted her. Months passed, and I felt the distance between us grow wider. I could tell something had shifted. I asked her if she was happy, and she'd give me vague reassurances, but I caught glimpses of something else, an edge in her laughter, a flick of her eyes that told me she was hiding something. That feeling of unease turned into a cloud of suspicion that hovered over our home. Then came the day that changed everything. I had just finished a long day at work and decided to surprise her with dinner, her favorite, chicken Alfredo. As I was getting things ready, I heard her phone buzz repeatedly. I figured she'd left it in the living room, so I went to grab it, thinking I'd just let her know I was home. I picked it up and saw a name flash across. The screen mark. I recognized the name. He was a guy from her office, someone she mentioned briefly in passing as a work friend. Suddenly, that gnawing feeling turned into a full-blown hurricane inside my chest. Curiosity got the better of me, and as I hovered over the phone, I saw a series of texts that made my blood run cold. It was a flurry of flirty messages, complete with emojis and innuendos that turned my stomach. "Can't wait to see you tonight," one said. Another read, "You make me feel alive." I felt as if the ground had been pulled from under me. How long had this been going on? Heart racing, I put the phone down and waited for her to come home. I needed to confront her, but my mind was a chaotic storm of anger, betrayal, and a deep sense of loss. When Sarah finally walked through the door, her smile faded the moment she saw my expression. I could see it in her eyes, she knew. "Jake, what's wrong?" she asked, feigning innocence, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. I took a deep breath. I was done tiptoeing around the truth. "Who's Mark?" I demanded, my voice steady despite the turmoil within. Her face paled, and for a moment she just stood there, frozen. I could almost see her calculating her response, deciding how much to lie and how much to reveal. "He's just a friend from work," she said finally, but I could hear the quiver in her voice. "No, Sarah, it's more than that. I saw the texts. Don't lie to me." Her eyes darted away from mine, and I felt my heart shatter a little more. The excuses came tumbling out, each one more pathetic than the last. "It's nothing serious, we were just having fun," she said, trying to downplay the depth of her betrayal. But I was done. I couldn't listen to her excuses anymore. The woman I loved was standing before me, but she felt like a stranger. Through that confrontation, I felt a mixture of rage and heartbreak, each emotion vying for dominance. I didn't know how to process it all, but I knew one thing. I had to figure out what to do next. The emotional impact hit me like a freight train. I went from anger to disbelief to sadness, all in the span of minutes. It was as if the life I thought I had was a carefully constructed facade, and now it lay in ruins. I spent that night pacing around the house, my thoughts racing. I needed a plan, but what kind of plan? Would I confront her again, or was it time to figure out my next move? The realization that my wife, the one I had shared everything with, had betrayed me was too much to bear. I felt lost in a maze of emotions, and I had to find a way out. After that explosive confrontation, I spent the night tossing and turning, unable to find any semblance of peace. The betrayal weighed heavily on me, making it hard to breathe. I replayed every moment, every conversation that seemed innocent at the time but now echoed with deceit. I was furious, heartbroken, and confused all at once. The next day, I woke up with a sense of determination. I knew I couldn't let Sarah's betrayal slide without consequence, and I needed to make sure I had all my facts straight before I made any rash decisions. I decided to dig deeper. She thought I didn't know. Now I would make her wonder how much I really did. I slipped into the role of a detective, gathering evidence like a case study I never signed up for. I started by tracking her movements. The first thing I did was follow her to work. It wasn't something I ever imagined myself doing, but the thought of her with Mark gnawed at me, making me feel like I needed answers I could no longer trust her to provide. That afternoon, I sat in my car outside the office, my heart racing with every passing minute. I watched as she came out of the building, sharing laughter with a group of colleagues. But one man stood out, Mark. He leaned in close as they talked, brushing her shoulder with his hand, and I felt my blood boil. I couldn't hear their conversation, but the way she threw her head back laughing sent a bitter pang deep into my chest. I waited for them to part ways, and when Sarah headed toward her car, I discreetly followed her home. She had no idea I was tailing her, and a part of me felt guilty for invading her privacy. But the other part, the part that was angry and hurt, reminded me that I had the right to know the truth. That evening, as she settled into the routine of our home, I decided to confront her once more. "Sarah," I called out, feigning casual indifference as I walked into the living room, trying to keep my voice steady. "How was work today?" She looked at me with that same practiced smile, but I could tell she was wary. "Busy, but good," she replied, fluffing a cushion on the couch. I studied her carefully, watching her movements. "Did you see Mark today?" Her smile faltered and she caught her breath for a moment. Yeah, we had a meeting together, just work stuff," she quickly added, her eyes darting away. "Right, just work stuff," I echoed, my heart pounding as I fought to keep my composure. "You know, I saw you two chatting outside today." My voice was calm, but I could feel the storm brewing inside me. She turned to face me fully, her expression shifting from casual to defensive in an instant. "Jake, you're being ridiculous. He's just a colleague." "Ridiculous? Sarah, don't insult my intelligence. I saw the way he touched you, the way you laughed. You've been lying to me." "What do you want me to say? I'm not cheating on you," she shouted, her voice rising. "You're overreacting." The anger surged within me, but I held back. I didn't want to let her get under my skin. Instead, I decided to play my hand differently. "You know, I have a friend who's a private investigator. Maybe I should hire him to get some real answers." Her eyes widened and I could see the panic begin to creep in. "You wouldn't dare." She spat back, her bravado faltering. "Wouldn't I?" I shot back, leaning closer, my own adrenaline fueling my resolve. "You've made me feel like a fool for too long. You're right. I may not have any hard evidence, but I won't sit here and play nice while you betray our marriage." Her jaw tightened, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of regret in her eyes. But it vanished quickly, replaced by the same old defensiveness. "You're being paranoid, Jake. Stop it." "Am I?" I shot back. "Maybe I should talk to Mark directly, at least then I could get the truth." Her face turned a shade paler and the anger in her demeanor shifted to fear. "You wouldn't do that. You're just trying to intimidate me." "No, I'm trying to protect myself. This isn't just about you anymore. You've dragged me into your lies and I deserve to know the truth." With that, the conversation spiraled into a shouting match, each of us airing our grievances and frustrations until it felt like the walls were closing in. I was furious, but somewhere deep down, I was still clinging to the hope that maybe there was a way to salvage what we had. As the night wore on, I found myself alone, contemplating what had just transpired. I was filled with a mix of anger and sadness, both emotions wrestling for control. Sarah had built a wall of lies around her, and I felt helpless against it. But I wasn't ready to give up just yet. I decided that I needed to gather more evidence before making any final decisions. I had to know the full extent of her betrayal. And I was determined to uncover the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The thought of her being with someone else tore at my heart, but I had to confront this head-on. This was more than just about Sarah. It was about me reclaiming my dignity and finding a way out of this emotional labyrinth. I had a plan, and I was ready to see it through. I had no idea how deep the rabbit hole went, but I was prepared to find out. The days following my confrontation with Sarah felt like weeks. I moved through my routine in a daze, going to work, running errands, and pretending everything was fine. But inside, I was a storm of confusion and anger. I was determined to gather more evidence on Sarah and Mark. I needed proof of her betrayal before I could fully confront the reality of our crumbling marriage. I enlisted the help of a close friend, Mike, who had always been my sounding board. Over a couple of beers, I laid everything out for him: my suspicions, the texts I'd found, and the confrontation that had spiraled into chaos. He listened intently, nodding every so often, brows furrowed in sympathy. "Dude, you need to know what's going on," Mike said. "Hire that investigator if you need to. You deserve the truth." It was easy for him to say, but the thought of hiring someone to spy on my wife felt surreal. Yet deep down, I knew it was the only way to get clarity. So, with a mix of dread and determination, I found a reputable private investigator and set up a meeting. The investigator's name was Alice. She was sharp, professional, and had a no-nonsense demeanor that put me slightly at ease. As I explained my situation, I could see her taking notes, her face serious. "I'll gather as much information as I can without raising any red flags. This may take a few days, but I'll report back with what I find," she assured me. The waiting was torturous. Every time I saw Sarah, I felt like I was staring at a stranger. She would ask me about my day, and I'd respond with vague answers, all while her facade of normalcy became increasingly difficult to bear. I hated the small talk, the mundane discussions about dinner plans and the way she acted as if nothing had changed. Inside, I felt like I was on fire and she was the one holding the match. One night I came home to find her dressed up, her hair perfectly styled and her makeup impeccable. She looked stunning, and for a moment I felt a twinge of the affection I used to have for her. But then the reality hit me. Who was she dressing up for? I remembered my vow to uncover the truth, and I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. "Going out?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yeah, just going to a friend's place for a little get-together," she replied casually, grabbing her purse. "I'll be home late. Mind if I join?" I asked, my heart pounding. "Ah, no, it's just a small thing and I wouldn't want you to feel out of place," she said, her eyes darting away. "Right," I said, feigning nonchalance, but inside I was a tempest of emotions. As she left, I felt a mix of rage and helplessness. My mind raced with thoughts of her and Mark, picturing them together, laughing and flirting. I had to do something. Later that night, I decided to snoop around her things. It felt wrong, invasive even, but I needed to know. I went to her nightstand, thinking maybe I'd find something, anything that would confirm my fears. I opened the drawer and sifted through the usual items: hair ties, lip balm, and a few old receipts. Just as I was about to give up, I spotted a small notebook wedged in the back. My heart raced as I pulled it out. It was filled with notes and scribbles, but what caught my attention were the hastily written names and dates, like a diary of her secret life. My hands trembled as I flipped through the pages. There it was, Mark's name, accompanied by dates that lined up with her late nights and excuses. It was all there, laid out like a cruel joke. I felt sick to my stomach and dropped the notebook back into the drawer. I couldn't believe she had the audacity to keep a record of her betrayal, as if it meant nothing to her. I stumbled back from the nightstand, my mind racing. The evidence I'd been seeking was right there, yet it felt like a double-edged sword. The next morning I met with Alice again. I wanted to know if she had any additional information. The tension in the air was palpable as I recounted my findings. She listened carefully and nodded. "I can dig deeper if you'd like, but Jake, you need to prepare for what I might uncover." I nodded, my heart heavy with uncertainty. I needed to know, but the dread of facing the truth loomed over me like a shadow. Over the next few days, Sarah's behavior grew more suspicious. She was texting more frequently, her phone never out of reach. I could see the guilt etching itself into her demeanor, but she was still skilled at pretending nothing was wrong. One night, I had a particularly vivid nightmare about Sarah and Mark together, laughing as they betrayed me. I woke up in a cold sweat, the betrayal feeling sharper in my mind. I realized at that moment that I couldn't continue living in this limbo. I needed to confront her again, but this time I had to be armed with evidence. So I devised a plan. I would confront her one last time, armed with everything I knew, the texts, the notebook, and Alice's findings, whatever they may be. I had to make her face the truth. With my heart pounding in my chest, I steeled myself for the inevitable. I knew this would be the moment that would define everything for us. This moment would determine if we could salvage our marriage or if it was truly over. As I prepared for the confrontation, I couldn't shake the feeling that the truth would either liberate me or shatter me completely. And I was ready for whatever came next. The night of the confrontation loomed over me like a dark cloud, heavy with the weight of what I was about to expose. I spent the entire day in a haze of anxiety, my mind racing through every possible outcome. I had everything I needed, the texts, the notebook, and the knowledge that she was lying to my face for months. But the thought of confronting Sarah again stirred a mix of dread and determination in me. As evening approached, I took a few deep breaths to steady myself. I had decided that I wouldn't allow her to manipulate the situation this time. I would be calm but assertive. I wouldn't let her spin her web of lies like the last time. The thought of seeing her reaction when faced with the truth both excited me and filled me with trepidation. When Sarah walked through the door, I caught the faint scent of perfume trailing behind her. She looked beautiful as always, with her hair cascading down her shoulders, but the sheen of her facade was starting to crack. I could see the flicker of nervousness in her eyes as she caught my gaze. "Hey, Jake, how was your day?" she asked, her voice too cheerful, like a clown trying to mask the tension in the room. I took a breath, holding her gaze steadily. "We need to talk, Sarah." Her smile faltered, and I watched as she processed my tone. "Okay," she hesitated, a flicker of anxiety washing over her features as she moved to sit on the couch. I joined her, my heart thumping like a drum in the silence that hung between us. "I know about Mark," I said bluntly, my voice low but firm. Her expression changed instantly, going from confusion to defensiveness. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out the small notebook I had discovered and placed it on the coffee table between us. "This," I said, pointing at it. "I found this in your nightstand, Sarah. You've been keeping tabs on your affair." Her face paled, the color draining from her cheeks. "Jake, you have to understand." "No, you don't get to explain yourself yet," I interrupted, my anger rising. "Let's not skip to excuses. Let's talk about the texts I found. The ones that included 'can't wait to see you.' What did you think I'd believe? That it was just friendly banter?" She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Her surprise was palpable. I could see the guilt flooding her mind as she struggled to find a way out of the corner I had boxed her into. "Jake, please," she finally managed, her voice breaking. "It's not what you think. Not what I think. Are you serious? You've been lying to me for months, and you think I'm going to buy that? You think this is just some misunderstanding?" My voice was rising, anger spilling over, but I forced myself to breathe deeply, trying to rein it back in. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she pleaded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Mark and I, it was just a fling. It didn't mean anything." The betrayal stung deeper than I could have imagined. "Just a fling, Sarah, that's what you call it. You've been lying to my face, and now you're trying to minimize it. You've destroyed everything we built." "Please let me explain," she begged, her voice cracking as the tears began to flow. I was feeling lost, and he made me feel wanted. "Stupid, I know, but it wasn't serious." "Not serious?" I echoed incredulously. "You think that makes it better? You think you can just brush it off as a mistake and that I should just forgive you?" Silence fell between us, and I watched as she crumbled under the weight of her own admissions. The tears streamed down her cheeks, and I could see the fear in her eyes, but I couldn't allow myself to feel pity, not yet. "Jake, I love you. I want to work through this," she cried, reaching out for my hand. But I pulled away, needing space to process the emotional turmoil swirling within me. "Do you even understand what love is?" I asked bitterly. "You've betrayed my trust in the most fundamental way, and now you want to fix things like it's that easy, like we can just sweep this under the rug and pretend it never happened." She shook her head, her sobbing intensifying. "No, no, I don't want to pretend. I want to make this right. I'll do anything. Anything." I challenged, anger and sadness battling inside me. You've made your choices, Sarah. You can't just erase them because you want to keep your marriage. You've hurt me in a way that I don't know if I can forgive." The weight of her betrayal hung in the air like a fog, and for a moment I felt the tears prick at the corners of my eyes. I was angry, but I was also heartbroken. This wasn't just about her betrayal. It was about the life we had built together, the dreams, the plans, the love that now felt like a distant memory. "I don't know what to do," I admitted, my voice breaking. "I can't even look at you right now without thinking about what you've done." She took a deep, shuddering breath, the tears continuing to stream down her face. "I'm so sorry, Jake. I'll prove to you that I can make it right. Just give me a chance." I stared at her, my heart torn between the love I once felt and the betrayal that now overshadowed everything. I realized that I was standing at a crossroads. The decision I had to make would shape the future of our lives, and I didn't want to rush into it without careful consideration. "I need time to think," I finally said, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "I can't make a decision now. I need to figure out what's best for me, for us." Her face fell, the realization of my words washing over her like a cold wave. "Jake, please don't leave me like this," she pleaded, desperation evident in her voice. But I stood up, feeling as if I were walking out of a nightmare. "I have to go," I said quietly, my heart heavy as I walked away, leaving her in the living room, surrounded by the debris of our shattered marriage. As I stepped out into the cool night air, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, but the pain of betrayal still clung to me like a shroud. I needed to sort through my emotions, but deep down I knew I had a decision to make. Would I fight for our marriage, or was it time to let go of the past and move on? I didn't have the answers yet, but I knew I had to find them, and soon. After that confrontation, I found myself in limbo. I went through the motions of daily life, but inside I felt like I was in a fog, a haze of confusion and heartache. I was still reeling from Sarah's betrayal, and the weight of the decision that lay ahead was almost unbearable. I'd spent so many years with her, invested so much of my heart and soul into our marriage. But could I really forgive her for what she'd done? I decided to take the week off work. I needed space to think, to process everything that had happened. I spent my days walking the dogs, visiting old friends, and trying to distract myself from the turmoil inside. But no matter where I went, the thoughts of Sarah and Mark clawed at my mind. A few days after the confrontation, I met with Alice, the private investigator. I needed to know if she had found any additional information about Sarah and Mark. I walked into her office, my heart pounding in my chest, nerves prickling at the back of my neck. "Hey, Jake," Alice greeted me, her expression serious. "I have some information for you." I nodded, trying to steady my breathing. "What did you find?" She pulled out a folder and laid it on the table. "I followed Sarah for a couple of days and gathered some evidence. I have photos, receipts, and some notes from conversations I overheard." My heart raced as I flipped through the pages. There it was, proof of the affair laid out in black and white. The photos showed Sarah and Mark dining together, laughing, and even sharing a kiss outside a restaurant. Each image felt like a dagger to my heart. I was devastated all over again, the pain fresh and raw. "I'm so sorry, Jake," Alice said gently. "I know this is hard to see." "Hard?" I echoed, my voice barely above a whisper. "This is crushing." The reality of the situation hit me like a tidal wave. Seeing the evidence, the confirmation of her betrayal, left no room for doubt. I felt sick to my stomach, and it took all my strength to keep it together. "What now?" I asked, my voice shaky. "You need to decide what you want to do moving forward. Do you want to confront her again with this evidence, or do you want to consider your options first?" I sat back, rubbing my temples. I felt like I was standing at a crossroads, but every path seemed dark and uninviting. "I don't know. Part of me wants to confront her with this, to lay it all out on the table, but another part of me wonders if I should just walk away." Alice leaned forward, her gaze steady. "Whatever you decide, don't rush into it. Take your time. You need to think about what's best for you moving forward." I nodded, grateful for her support. After the meeting, I took the time to wander the city. The images from the folder burned into my mind. I remembered the good times with Sarah, the laughter, the love we once shared. Could we ever go back to that? Or had she permanently shattered the trust between us? As the week dragged on, I started reflecting on my own feelings. I was angry, yes, but I was also deeply hurt. I felt betrayed not just because of the infidelity, but because of the lies, the deceit, and the emotional distance that had crept into our marriage. I realized that I couldn't just sweep this under the rug and pretend it didn't happen. One night, I sat down and wrote a letter to Sarah. A letter I wasn't sure I'd ever give her, but I needed to express my feelings. I wrote about the love we once shared, the dreams we had, and how I felt like she had flicked a switch and turned everything we built into ashes. I poured my heart out onto the page, detailing the pain and confusion I was feeling. By the end of the letter, I felt slightly lighter. It was cathartic to articulate my feelings, even if only for myself, but it still left me with the nagging question, what now? I decided to reach out to Sarah, asking her to meet me at our favorite coffee shop. I figured it was time to lay it all on the table to see where her head was at and to give her one last chance to explain herself fully. When I arrived at the coffee shop, my heart was racing. I could see her sitting at a corner table, nervously tapping her fingers against her cup. She looked up as I approached, her expression a mix of hope and anxiety. "Hey," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Hey," I replied, pulling out a chair and sitting down. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken words, and I could feel the tension between us. "I'm glad you wanted to talk," she said, her eyes searching mine. "Yeah, well, we need to clear the air," I said, trying to keep my tone steady. "I've had some time to think about everything." Her expression shifted, a flicker of apprehension crossing her face. "I've been thinking too, Jake. I know I messed up, I know I hurt you, and I'm so sorry. I never wanted to lose you. Apologies are a start, but they're not enough," I replied, my voice firm. "I need to understand how you could do this to us. What was going through your mind when you decided to cheat?" She took a breath, her eyes filling with tears. "I felt so lost. I didn't know how to communicate those feelings, and when Mark showed interest, I got swept up in it. I didn't think it through." I stared at her, my heart heavy. "But this wasn't just a mistake, Sarah. You made a choice to betray my trust. You chose to lie to me, to go behind my back." "I know," she admitted, her voice shaking. "I've been awful and I hate myself for it. I want to make it right. I want to do whatever it takes to fix this. I love you, Jake." The words hung in the air, and for a moment I felt a flicker of the love we once shared. But I also felt the weight of the betrayal, the emotional scars that wouldn't fade overnight. "I don't know if I can get past this," I finally said, my voice breaking. "You've hurt me in a way I can't just forget. I need to think about what I want for my future." She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I understand. Whatever you need, I'll support it." The pain in her eyes mirrored my own, and as I looked at her, I knew the road ahead was uncertain. The love I had for her was still there, but it was tangled in betrayal and disappointment. I needed time to reflect on everything I had learned and felt, and ultimately decide if there was a path forward for us or if it was time to close the door on our marriage for good. The choice was mine to make, and I wanted to make sure I made it thoughtfully, no matter how difficult it was. As I left the coffee shop, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I would take the time I needed to figure things out. I was going to confront my feelings, my future, and whether or not I could ever truly trust Sarah again. The journey was just beginning, and I had to navigate it with care. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions. I spent hours reflecting on my life, on Sarah, and on the choices I had to make. The coffee shop meeting left me with more questions than answers. I still felt torn between the love I had for her and the deep betrayal I had experienced. I decided to take a weekend trip to the cabin we had rented for our anniversary a few years back. It was a place filled with memories, laughter, and love before everything had crumbled. I thought being there would help me find clarity, to escape the noise of everyday life and reflect on what I truly wanted. The drive out was peaceful, the trees lining the road shifting from urban sprawl to a verdant canopy. As I parked the car and stepped out, the familiar scent of pine and earth enveloped me, drawing me back to simpler times. I sat on the porch, the cool breeze brushing against my face, and let the tranquility wash over me. But as I sat there, I couldn't escape the thoughts of Sarah. I could picture her sitting next to me, smiling and laughing at the little moments we had shared, the starlit nights, the heart-to-heart conversations. It hurt to think of how things had unraveled, As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I pulled out my phone and started writing a message to Sarah. I needed her to know how I felt, but I also needed to be honest with myself. I'm at the cabin. I need space to think about everything we talked about. I'm not sure what the future holds for us, but I want you to know that I still care about you. I just need time. After sending the message, I closed my eyes and let the stillness surround me. I was grateful for the opportunity to escape, but I also knew that I couldn't run from the decision that awaited me. The next day, I spent hours hiking the trails around the cabin, losing myself in nature. With every step, I felt a little lighter, the weight of the betrayal still heavy but somehow more manageable. I found a sense of clarity as I embraced the solitude. By evening, I returned to the cabin and decided to call Mike. He had been a constant source of support throughout this ordeal. "Hey man, how's it going?" Mike asked. His voice cheerful, but I could tell he sensed my somber mood. "Not great, to be honest. I'm still trying to figure things out," I replied, leaning against the porch railing. "Have you made any decisions?" "Honestly, I'm torn. I love her, but how can I move forward after everything? I'm scared of going back to the way things were." "Listen, you've got to do what's right for you. If you feel you can't trust her again, then maybe it's time to let go. But if you think there's a chance to rebuild, then give it some time, just don't rush it." His words resonated with me, and I knew he was right. It was all about finding closure, whether that meant starting anew or walking away for good. "Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. I think I need to give myself some space to see where my feelings land." As the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I knew I wasn't ready to make a final decision yet, but I wanted to approach this thoughtfully. I needed to give myself time to heal and to figure out what I wanted moving forward. When I returned home, I found Sarah waiting for me. She looked anxious, her eyes filled with hope and fear as she approached. "Jake, I've been thinking about everything. I know I've hurt you, but I want to do whatever it takes to fix this." "I appreciate you saying that, Sarah," I replied, my heart heavy as I searched for the right words. "But we can't just gloss over what's happened. I need to be honest about my feelings." "I know, and I'll do anything," she said desperately. "I'll go to counseling, I'll stay accountable. I just want the chance to prove my love for you." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. "I need time to think. I'm not sure if I can get past this. I don't want to live in a relationship where trust is shattered." She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I understand. I'm willing to fight for us, but I won't pressure you. Just know that I love you and I'm so sorry for my actions." As we stood there, I felt the heartache that had been our reality weigh heavily between us, yet I also felt a flicker of hope. It would take time to rebuild what had been lost, but I realized that I wasn't completely ready to throw it all away just yet. In the weeks that followed, we started attending couples therapy. It was a slow process, and there were days filled with intense discussions and raw emotions. But we were committed to understanding each other's perspectives and working toward rebuilding the trust that had been lost. Through counseling, I learned to express my feelings and confront my fears, while Sarah learned to take responsibility for her actions and work on her communication. It was difficult, but I began to see glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with again. But healing takes time. I also learned to set boundaries, to be clear about what I would and wouldn't accept moving forward. It was a journey of rediscovery, not just of our relationship but of ourselves. As months passed, I found that I began to trust Sarah again, albeit cautiously. I realized that the road to healing was not linear. It was filled with ups and downs. I had to learn to let go of the past while also acknowledging the lessons it brought me. Ultimately, I decided to stay and fight for our marriage. I learned that love isn't just about the good times. It's about weathering storms together, about facing challenges and emerging stronger. I won't pretend that the scars of betrayal will ever completely fade, but I've come to accept them as part of our journey. Sarah and I are still rebuilding, learning how to trust each other again, and I believe we have the potential to create something even more profound than what we had before. For anyone facing similar challenges, I want you to know that it's okay to take your time to figure things out. Trust your instincts, communicate openly, and remember that love can often endure even the deepest wounds if both parties are willing to work for it. Life is unpredictable, and so is love. In the end, it's about choosing each other every single day, no matter what.